ITNation Connect 2024 was last week. It's the Monday after. Huge success. Largest MSP event of the year. So many new announcements. So many new exciting things going on. We had a great time. We had Podcasters Row for the first time ever at an MSP event, by the way, not just IT Nation, where we had 9 podcasters set up in their own area, in a high traffic area, just having conversations with attendees, MSPs, with vendors, with ConnectWise staff. Just a wonderful event. Ushering the new CEO, Manny Ravello, as Jason McGee exits, and lots of great new product announcements. I personally had a speaking session there as well, which was a great success. How to help MSPs in sales and marketing with podcasting. There was great after parties with Universal and Stone Temple Pilots, and Tony Hawk spoke, and it was an incredible event. We recorded many conversations, and the following is one of the conversations, and they were all great. It was a high traffic area, so they might be a little noisy, but just a great event. I encourage everyone to consider going to it. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport.
Michael Crean, thank you so much for your time. What is it about hockey that attracts you?
I think it's
Capitals.
Specifically the Capitals?
No, just go hockey first, then the
I
Capitals.
think in general, what I like is it's not politicized.
Ah.
You look at some of the other sports out there and you see how these superstars are inserting themselves into politics and their opinions. And, and the other thing that I really love about there is no trash talking off the ice. And these guys will throw down, beat down, have the fight. But when the game is over, and that's it. It's not carrying into social media. It's not going on to the, somebody's talking about somebody else. I appreciate that part. I mean, it's pure. You're in the moment. You feel angry. You throw the gloves off. You beat down. You go to the penalty box. Maybe talk a little smack while you're in the box. Occasionally, if it's really bad, you come back out of the box and you throw down again.
Wow.
But it's done.
And then afterwards, you're shaking hands.
Yeah. And
how many fights have you been in hockey?
None.
You don't do it.
No.
It's not worth it.
Well, so I never played as a child.
Right.
I've only coached as an adult. And I'm going to tell you, it's not in my best interest to get into a fight when you're coaching your child's team.
Right. Why would you do that?
I mean, that doesn't look good. I'm not winning Dad of the Year if I do that.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah. Going to
opposite.
jail. You're never going to be coaching again.
Oh, God. Incarceration puts a real heavy strain on parenting.
I mean, I've not done it yet. I don't think I want to do it.
Good.
Like the silver handcuffs are not my. It's not
a
a
goal,
set.
Mike.
That's a fashion accessory I'm going to skip.
And the Capitals, how they looking?
Man, they're looking hot this year.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so we had 5 straight home victories, I think, in the month of October. And we haven't done that since 2019. And we all know 2019 was the miracle year for us.
Was.
We got
Ovechkin.
Oh man, he's gotten several goals.
It's
I mean, and there's the haters out there
How
right
old
now.
is he?
What is he? 39.
Okay.
Something
Yeah.
like at the very end of his 30s, which when you look at between him and Wayne Gretzky, like they're tracking equal right about now. And it's the grade 8 against the greatest of all time. And I don't think he'll do it this year, but and then there's been the haters. Somebody said to me, it's like, yeah, but what about the empty nets? It's like, is it part of the game? It's like, do you think people are pulling the goalie to give him the free shot? I don't think that's their strategy to win.
Does he have a lot of empty net goals?
Not that many.
Oh, I see.
It's just he's maybe had 2 of them this season. And so,
Oh, please.
But I mean, it's the people that hate on Tom Brady. It's the people
Right,
that hate on
right.
whoever the superstar of
It's gonna
superstars
happen.
is, that when you get to that pinnacle, somebody's going to have something negative to say about you, because why not?
Yeah. Your favorite whiskey is?
Bourbon. But
So your favorite bourbon is? Excuse me.
So I'm going to have to go with Eagle Rare 17.
Wait, why 17? Eagle Rare 17? I don't know it.
So it comes out of the antique collection from Buffalo Trace, and there's these 5 bottles that they made, and they've got varying years of Eagle Rare, but this one is a 18 year. It's called Eagle Rare 17, and yeah, I fell in love with it at an ASCII event when we won the ASCII Cup for the very first time as Solutions Granted, and they happened to have it there. And Corey Clark was there with me. We may have finished that bottle that night.
Wow.
I probably felt it the next day. And then it became an obsessive hunt to go find my own bottle to own it.
Really?
And then this year at RSA, they have one that's called Eagle Double Rare. It's about a $25,000 bottle if you buy the whole bottle.
Jeez.
And they had it at this bar. It's like, oh, well, we've got to try it. And it was expensive, but I'm just going to do one pour.
Okay.
One pour. I think it was multiples of hundreds of dollars, but
Yeah.
I've never seen it. Only pictures.
Gotta
Like, gotta
try
try it. Trash.
Really?
Disappointed, upset, not liking it. And so back to Eagle Rare 17. That's my go-to.
And the difference between whiskey and bourbon, Mike, is?
The taste?
Just the taste. But
Yeah.
now it used to be Bourbon County, Kentucky, but that's changed. Anybody can make bourbon now, right?
Yeah, it is about the process of, what ingredients that they're using and things like that. But I also like whiskey. Like, I'm an Irish whiskey guy.
Yes.
Not as much of a Jameson, because I feel like I left that behind in my 20s.
Sure.
I don't need to do that anymore.
Inexpensive, yeah.
But there's another one that comes from that same distiller called Middleton. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's another one.
Look at that smile.
Yeah. I'm not an alcoholic, I promise.
Oh, you're definitely not. But you've got, at your booth at Solutions Granted, you always had really good whiskey, and it wasn't something you did all day, certainly, but it was like, hey, you could win this.
Yeah,
and I know
we
what
did
I'm
the
talking
bourbon
about.
tasting.
Yeah, bourbon tasting.
I was like, look, you got to step out. You
Yeah.
got to set yourself aside in places like this and these conferences. And when you can bring a couple different bourbons, and so my bourbon journey really started because of Corey. Corey is like, when he gets into it, he's the all-in guy, and he can't help but to follow his hype.
Is that right?
It doesn't matter what it is. If it's his car, it's a food, it's bourbon, yeah. When he finds a love, he wants everybody to love it too.
Is that right? Oh, that's nice, actually, to have a friend like that.
Yeah.
What is it about security that attracts you?
Well, I think you know this. Maybe not everybody does. So I spent 9 years in the military.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was given the opportunity to help others that couldn't help themselves, securing our country in a way that was important, and more importantly, doing something that I knew that I was safeguarding the future for my children,
Wow.
and providing my passion and my purpose. And when I got out of the military, kind of fumbled around trying to find things, and found my way into this IT world by mistake. Became an MSP. I was a flippin' horrible MSP. My bedside manner sucks. I was not patient. I was not kind. I was not a good MSP.
I've had a little experience of that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. But found my way into cybersecurity, and everything started clicking again. I felt like I had passion and purpose, and I understood what my mission was, and that I was there to help defend those who couldn't defend themselves. And for me, it's just black and white. I mean, there's very few things in life that I probably should say are black and white, but like there's good action and bad action, and to hunt down the bad action and help somebody save the most precious thing that they have. Life is the most precious thing, but that data, that intellectual property that they've created, that somebody shouldn't be able to just walk in and hold you hostage for. It feels like I'm doing something good that makes somebody's day better.
So what did you love and hate about having an MSP?
Oh, like just the stupidity that went along with it. Like, I can't print. This is an absolute disaster of a mess, nightmare, 911, help me out right now. And it's like, well, is there paper in the printer? Well, of course it is. I'm not stupid. Well, could you indulge me just to make sure? It's like, is there toner? Like, well, I just replaced it. Well, how long ago? Well, recently. It's like, give me a date. Give me a time. Like, help me out here. And then you find out that it was toner.
Yeah.
And so it's just that idea of like, as an MSP, man, it's a hard job.
It is.
I think I always say that, every heart surgeon is a doctor, but not every doctor is a heart surgeon. So I feel like I get to be a heart surgeon. I'm a specialist. I get to be narrowly focused, and it makes it easy for me. But man, as an MSP, you have to know something about everything.
Yeah.
You have to be educated in so
Generalist.
many different facets. And your customers expect you to not just know a little bit. They expect you to have all the answers. And I don't know. That's a tough place.
It sure is.
I mean, my hat's off to them. Like, I don't ever want to be an MSP again. And I'm going to tell you, all the customers that I used to have they don't want me to be an MSP again either.
So how did you go from MSP to Solutions Granted?
So it was still Solutions Granted.
Oh, that was your MSP?
Yeah, that was the MSP as well. We
Ah.
did a little bit of change or be changed moments. You know, it kind of started off as a VAR, became an MSP while we had this government contracting practice with full-time employees that were working for the government. And what I found is that I was so upset and unhappy, and I was taking it out on everybody, but it was my choice. I decided to take this path. I decided to start this business. I decided to be this MSP, and I just didn't like it. I wasn't happy with me. And because I wasn't happy with me, I was a jerk. And I'm keeping it clean. Like, I'm trying not
You
to
don't
drop.
have to.
I'm not trying to drop the real words that I'm feeling. Oh, I was an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I was not nice. But it was all about me. It wasn't about the customers. It wasn't about what they were doing, what they were not doing, what they were paying, what they were not paying. I was getting everything I asked for, and I wasn't happy.
So you made this pivot to a pure security platform.
Yeah, it was a gradual change. It was so we had become a SonicWall partner, I don't know, 2007, 2008, something like that. Really started to see the love of the firewall and the things that we could do and how we could operationalize it from just being a security tool to be a performance tool, to being an employee monitoring tool, to help guide and drive people in the right direction so you didn't have to have the conversations. And I really loved it. It felt good. It felt like we were kind of sitting at the top of the rack. You know, you hear people make that statement.
Yes.
And, you know, like, hey, let's pivot. Let's become a firewall management monitoring company, and let's see if we can do that. And it started to work. And then I started thinking about all of the things as an MSP that I hated, but all of the things about what wasn't being done for MSPs. Like, back then, as an MSP, or those VARs that were still trying to figure out how to turn to an MSP, it was sold you a firewall, configured it, deployed it, gave you some antivirus, configured it, deployed it, but nobody was monitoring it. Nobody was looking after it. Nobody was caring for it. Nobody was saying, hey, at a very minimum, you were calling yourself an MSP and you were deploying firewalls, but you couldn't even tell your client that Becky Lynn in accounting was on Facebook for 27 hours last week. So maybe not even the security aspect that we all know what a firewall was responsible for, but why not use it for productivity? And so we pivoted and we started growing, and it made sense. Then Dell acquired SonicWall.
Yes.
That other evil four-letter word.
So what happened then?
It turned my world upside down.
For the
I mean,
worst.
for the worst. I had lost about $1 million in revenue in 1 year. And it was all of these comments. They were coming to me. He's like, well, what happened? And what are you doing? And what changed? I'm like, I don't know. We'll play the silly game. I'm sitting in the same chair, in the same office, at the same desk, on the same computer, with the same employees, with the same drive, with the same passion. I didn't change. Everything changed around me. But I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to just blame everybody for my demise. It's like, well, let's pivot. We became a Mimecast partner. 9 years ago, maybe almost 10 years ago, we became a Cylance partner. And that's when the world changed for us. It drastically changed. It was the start of our journey to our MDR offering. And hired more people, got out of the way of those people they were doing better than I ever did. And that's how it worked.
So you go from being an MSP to a vendor because your primary clients are MSPs when you make this pivot.
We did.
And your way to relate to them is, I'm a former MSP, hated it, but now I've got something that can help you.
Yeah, it was building more of that idea around a strong team. And when you look at the special operations community and the military, like, they all have very similar training. They all can do very similar things, but then they have their specialty. You know, you've got the guy that is more of the medically, to take care of the team. You've got the guy that's the communicator. You've got a demolitions guy, you've got a weapons guy. So you've got these teams. It's like, why can't that work in the civilian world? So why couldn't we become the heart surgeon? And because, and one of the things that drove it, there was a gentleman, and it was two owners for a company called the Davenport Group. And I met them when Dell acquired Sonic Wall, and I met Paul and Sonia. And one of Paul's comments one day is like, hey, the reason we don't do security is because you can't dabble in it.
Wow.
You're either in or you're out. And that resonated with me. And it's like, you're right. We're in. We want to be all in. So we can be all in so you don't have to be. And we can be a natural extension of your team. And dumb luck, right place, right time, it worked out.
Yeah, it
You
sure
know?
did. So the company that got acquired and made you lose $1 million eventually, Mike, buys you.
Yeah. It's maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was this, everybody was asking, well, what's your exit strategy going to be? It's like, I don't know. I'm going to keep picking it up and putting it down because I feel really good with picking it up and putting it down and doing this thing, and it's working well, and we're growing, and I'm having a good time. And I love my team. I love my family. I love my life. Like, why do I want change right now? I don't need it. We're going to keep doing this. But there was this little voice in the back of my head, and this was like early in the days of Solutions Granted. This guy who was one of the founding partners for a company called Mercator Capital, named Lior Samuelson, Israeli Special Forces, became good friends with him. He asked me what my exit strategy was going to be, and this was probably 18 years ago.
Wow.
And I said, well, I've got these kids. How cool would it be one day if my kids took over the business and I left this legacy? And he looked at me and says, you're a dumbass. Like, wait, I'm a dumbass because I want to leave a legacy to my children. And he said, look, you started with nothing in your pocket. You had less than nothing in your pocket, and you've made it into something. So if somebody pulls into your parking lot with a truckload of cash, run with it like you stole it.
Yeah.
And that little message kept resonating in the back of my head. And, for the last 5-6 years, I'd been approached frequently because the security game became sexy and cool and everybody wanted to be in it. But I was really good at the Heisman. I didn't want to hear it. Again, I'm having a good time. I'm picking it up. I'm putting it down. It's working. But I had made a comment that how cool would it be if SonicWall ever said, because they were the start. They were the start to the journey because it was their firewall that we started with.
Yeah.
And so, I always tell people, and I say this frequently, it's like, it's always the first. Like, you remember your first car.
Yeah.
Right? I've got 5 kids. So I love all my kids the same.
Wow.
They argue and say that there's always a favorite in there.
Of course.
But the first time that you hear the words dada, you only hear that once for the very first time. And that holds a special place in your heart. Love them all the same, but that first time is so cool beyond all. And every time else you hear it, it's still really cool. But the first time, it's like, wow. And it was like SonicWall. That was my first time into the security space of something that I picked, that I chose. And, it's, the dumbest way possible. And I don't even know why I say this. It's almost this magical journey of stupidity that just worked out for me.
So Dell, SonicWall eventually left Dell?
Yeah. So Dell owned SonicWall for, I don't remember how many years it was. They put them in the Dell software group. Okay, I don't really get it, but people are smarter than me. Somehow this firewall company that is completely wrapped around hardware with wireless access points, they go into the Dell software group. So it was a bit of a weird place for them to be. And then as Dell was making their acquisition of
EMC?
Yeah, they needed money. And so they divested themselves of almost the entire Dell software group.
That's right.
And SonicWall got spun out to private equity, which is Francisco Partners, which is who owns them now. And, it's interesting. 8 years. Dell has not owned SonicWall for 8 years. And every city that I travel to, and every speaking engagement, and every conference, there's always guaranteed one that comes up and says, aren't you guys owned by Dell? I was like, my man, it's been 8 years. Come on. Come out from underneath the rock. Enjoy the sunshine. It doesn't hurt. It feels good. No, we're not owned by Dell. It's just interesting, and maybe it's just too much information out there because there's so many acquisitions and mergers and this happening and that happening, and people can't keep up with it. But now that I'm on the other side of the wall, was like, man, 8 years, come on.
Yeah.
It's enough.
It's enough.
It's enough. So now when I ask people, it's like, hey, when you think about Sonic Wall, what do you think? I cut everybody off in the knees. Then don't you dare tell me we're still owned by Dell.
I do a lot of consulting work for HPE. So HP split, and HPI is the printers and the the desktops, and the HP is HP Enterprise, and it's more services and server. But I had a focus group where they with MSPs, and they all said, "Oh, well, you guys still for HPE?" And it's like, "Well, what kind of printers can we get from you?" I said, "Well, no, that's the wrong company."
Yeah.
So there's some things that are just kind of ingrained. Is there anything, Mike, in the last month and a half that you changed your mind on?
I don't know that it's been the last month or month and a half, but I'll say in the last 12 months, I've changed my mind a lot.
On?
We were very ornery about we were going to do one MDR, and we were going to be the best of the best of the best at that one MDR.
Package.
Yeah. We were going to get super strong, super strategic, and we learned so much from that. We have more ability now. We have more employees now. We have more money backing us now. And what we found is that because of that, we've been able to add more MDR offerings, but still maintaining the highest level of deliverables. I guess I think if I don't know what here's what I've learned in the last month. I hate airplanes. I hate hotels. I hate another shower and another elevator. Like I'm done. I said this to somebody earlier. I looked at my Marriott Bonvoy app. Got 119 nights in hotels this year.
Wow.
Like, I want to be at home.
Yes, you do.
I want to be that's what I've learned. I know that I like my home. I like my bed. I like my dog. I like my family.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned more than anything. And it's, as much as I think that I am beyond being human, everybody thinks that being on the road is fun and glorious and amazing. And it's like, oh, you're going to all these places. You need all these great meals. Like, you don't get it. Like, I rolled out of here last night at 9:00 when this conference ended, and I went straight to my room. I brushed my teeth and I crawled into bed and I was done.
Gone.
Like, I'm an old man crawling into bed at 9:00 at night. So
I look forward.
There's limits. I'm learning that I've got some limits. That's what I've learned really well in the last month or two.
So I think I told you my journey. When I started my MSP in the 90s, was working way too hard, 14-hour days, 15-hour. No stranger to this, Mike. You are. Personal habits, diet, throwing to the side. I got myself up to 340 pounds. So the doctor says to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. Scared the hell out of me. Yeah. So I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel. Like, this is my freaking pie hole. I'm the one who did it. I'm going to get myself out. 6-7 months later, lost 130 pounds. People always ask me how, like there's some quick answer. And there's no quick answer. I say discipline. Yeah. That's how I lost it. I got routine. I got willpower. And that's how I do it. So I continue to do it. How does discipline play a role in your life, Michael Crean?
Realizing that everything is my fault.
Explain.
And so this is the thing, like, people always see that as a negative comment. But think about it. If something goes wrong and I had some part in it, well, then it's my fault, right? If I'm driving down the road and I'm not paying attention and I run off the road and damage my tire, that's my fault.
Yeah, certainly.
But if I'm driving down the road and I get to the place that I'm going successfully because I'm engaged, I'm not distracted, I'm doing all of the things to participate in the journey with everybody around me, and it is successful, that's my fault. So assigning fault isn't negative. And that goes back to the idea of that words don't give meanings to people, people give meanings to words. And so for me, taking on that responsibility of realizing everything is my fault, good and bad, and not assigning an emotion to it and just being okay. And I'm going to fail. And that was my fault. But what can I do with that failure is going. And so just like you got to that place in your life where you were at because it was your fault.
Yeah.
You came out of that place in your life because it was your fault.
That's right.
And all of us. And if we stop blaming everyone else, I mean, look, there are people that can influence and change and make it more difficult. But at the end of the day, if you want to accomplish something, look, I grew up in Ohio. My mom and my dad and my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents worked for General Motors in a factory.
Wow.
If you look at that northeast corner of Ohio, it's very depressed. There's lots of drugs. There's lots of problems up there. And here I am today. I took a journey that was different because I didn't want to be a victim, and I wanted everything to be my fault, good or bad.
Fascinating.
And I think if we do that more often and we wake up every morning realizing, I screwed up yesterday. Man, the things that I did yesterday, please don't do those again. Like, be a little more patient with my son because he's 13 and he wears me out with some of the, hey, dude, get this done. An hour later,
Is he
didn't.
stubborn? I
No,
can't
he's-
imagine where you get it from.
Well, okay, I don't know that he's stubborn, but he gets distracted. We all
I
get
see.
distracted.
Sure, 13-year-old.
No, man, clean up your room,
Yeah.
take out the trash, feed the
Yeah.
dog,
Okay,
whatever it
Dad.
may be.
Yeah.
And the same thing with my almost 17-year-old. It's like, girl, clean up your room because
Yeah.
it looks like a bomb went off in here. And how do you live like this, you filthy little animal? And then you walk away and you start doing other things. And then you come back a day later and it's like, you didn't do what I told you to do. Well, that's her fault, but it's also my fault because I let her have too much
Look at
room
that. It's very interesting.
to.
You take ownership.
You have to.
Yeah.
And I think that is, to me, the biggest problem. And I'm not even going to go to our society. Let's just stay to our community.
Sure.
This IT services community. That is the biggest problem that we have today. When there's a
Interesting.
compromise that happens, Kaseya did it, SonicWall did it, Fortinet did it, Microsoft did it, whoever did it, and I didn't do anything wrong. Oh no. 95% of compromises happen because of human error and the lack of the proper configuration. And yes, we as a manufacturer sometimes have code problems. We have issues. We're human. We make mistakes. But we don't act like a team. There's no team sport in this. Everybody's covering their ass, and nobody's assuming their fault.
Yeah, it's a way of looking at it because then you can't. I would kid some of my friends like, "Why didn't you tell me I was this fat?" And I'm,
Right.
with my
Right.
tongue in my cheek. Obviously, I know what it
Right.
was, but it's like, but I'm the one who did it, and I'm going to take myself out of it.
But when you're in that moment, sometimes it's much easier to look for somebody else to hang it
That's right.
and not hang it on yourself.
Yeah,
And
push it out.
for years, like one of the things somebody asked me is like, how do you know when you've done it right? It's like, if I can go home and look at my kids, and I love my kids, like my kids they guide me in more ways than they'll ever know.
Right.
Because I want them to see me do it right, but I also want them to see me not fail, but I want them to see me fall and get up. I want them to see me learn from my mistakes. Like, I've made my mistakes. Like, I've been short with my son, and he's just irritated me to no end, and I snap at him. And I say something that I shouldn't say, or I act in a way I shouldn't act. And, like, I don't know if it's Catholic guilt or whatever it is, but, like, I've got to apologize quick. Like, I got to go to him. I've got to hug him. I've got to tell him I'm sorry. And I've got to humble myself. 55 years old, humbling myself to 13 because what I need when I'm gone is I need him to be better than me. And I'm accepting my responsibility. And I think we all could do it much better. And like, look, we've all pulled out in traffic and cut somebody off, right? But when somebody does it to us, how upset do we get?
Right.
And like, we throw the Beverly Hills hello, we say all of the expletives of everything that we want to string together. But what if they're thinking about their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister, their aunt that they just found out they got a terminal diagnosis of cancer? We don't know what's going on in their life.
We don't.
And so we give them grace and compassion the same way. Like, look, when I screw up, sorry, like, I'm sorry, like, really, I'm really sorry. Like, can you please forgive me? But then why don't we give it to others the same way? So,
Michael Crean, great show. Always a pleasure. We've known each other on and off for a couple of years. You made this great leap. I look forward to seeing where this takes you, and thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.